Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed for this month's Q&A. I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get straight into the questions.
All right, the very first question for this month's Q&A comes from Elliot. Buy a Pascal GPU now or wait for Nvidia's next generation of GPUs?
Well, we've been asked this one a lot, so we probably have to address it at some point. I'm not sure if the next gen GPUs are coming, well, next month or in the next 6 months. It's really impossible to say. I don't think anyone in the media really knows or could know. We're pretty certain that there are new GPUs coming sometime this year, and they'll offer some kind of performance improvement or more efficient than what we currently have, but of course we just don't know. My advice would be, at the very least, wait till after Computex to see if anything gets announced there, and Tim and I will be at the show in 2 weeks' time, or 2.5 weeks, and we'll cover it there and let you know. If not, hopefully then in 2 or 3 weeks' time, graphics card pricing will have dropped a bit further. So if you can't really wait any longer, then 2 to 3 weeks, you might save a bit of money opposed to buying now, and you will have given Nvidia a chance to announce any new GPUs if they're going to.
All right, this question comes from Shaderade. Why doesn't anyone show real-world benchmarks? Like, we all know Intel has better single-core scores for FPS, but most gamers are multitasking at the same time. While gaming, there's music playing, etc., on a second monitor, even playing Hardware Unboxed videos,
of course.
That kind of stuff. How does Intel's single-core scores hold it up in game while multitasking behind it?
All right.
Bit of a two-parter there.
Yeah, well, we'll tackle the first part of it first. So the kind of real-world benchmarking being suggested here, the reason we don't do it is just because it's unreliable. Yeah, I've looked into this before, and the results, in my opinion, are just way too inconsistent. So depending on what applications or what you have open for a start, then what those applications are doing at any given time during the benchmark, that can impact the results. And while I get that is more real world, it's not really great for accurately comparing how two different CPUs perform. So you'll see situations where a 4-core CPU might beat an 8-core CPU, for example, of even the same architecture, and even a 3-run average won't necessarily fix or smooth out those results. So yeah, it's just the inconsistencies there you'll find when testing with other things running in the background doing uncontrolled things. So that's why we don't do it. I'd suggest though, if you do care about gaming performance, then the best practice is just to ensure that anything that can heavily influence performance is just closed before you get gaming. Anyone that plays competitive games would be doing that anyway, because the last thing you want is in the heat of the moment you're about to fire at someone and you get some lag because some program in the background's decided to install something or update or whatever. So yeah, close your programs. And as for things like playing music in the background, that really has no real impact on modern processors. Basically zero impact even on something like a G4560. And the same is true for movies and TV shows, so you should be seeing very little performance impact there. And the same also goes for downloading torrents, for example. And just finally, test systems don't comprise of some unrealistic skeleton crew of applications running. It's just a standard unaltered version of Windows 10 Professional. We have the performance monitoring software that we use, things like storage and graphics utilities. And then I have Steam, Uplay, Origin. I imagine you have all the same sort of stuff on your laptops. So there's a fair bit of software there anyway. Quite a bit of memory is being used as soon as we start the system up. So taking all that stuff into account, that's another reason why it's so important that we do an average of 3 runs, so we do get consistent results. Okay, next question is from Malogtang23. Sure, I got that right. Is there any difference in memory compatibility with a first-gen Ryzen chip between X370 and X470 boards? Since the IMC is in the CPU, I feel like there shouldn't be any difference, but it's good to know if you can get a cheap Ryzen 7 first-gen part. Okay, well, no, there isn't. I know I tested this in my original review and I was having a few problems with the X370 boards, but that was down to BIOSes. The BIOS that I was using just had a few issues there with the memory that I was trying to use. I haven't gone back and done a whole lot of further testing or follow-up testing for that, but I have seen a few others that have done testing and they've found that the X370 boards are identical to the X470 boards. That's assuming that you're comparing a board of similar quality. So it really comes down to how many layers the PCB is, how well it's designed for high-frequency memory and stuff like that. But if you have an X370 board and an X470 board, and the only difference on them is the chipset, and they've got the same quality BIOS, the same board, then you will see the same results. Okay, next question is from Luck AU. Would you recommend upgrading from my current setup. It's an i7-2600 B75M motherboard, 12 gigabytes rather of DDR3 memory, and a GTX 670. And/or what path would I take? Gaming for the most part, although I do love how Ryzen or the Ryzen lineup is looking in terms of productivity. So I'm going to give you a go at that.
Yeah, I think only if you feel the need to upgrade at this point. I think the graphics card there is probably the weakest link. So if you threw in something like GTX 1060 or RX 580, you'd see a pretty big performance uplift in games. Alternatively, if you need a completely brand new system for gaming, the Core i5-8400 is pretty cost effective at the moment. Yep. Though, if you care more about productivity, then the Ryzen 5 2600 might be a better option. And of course, they have that superior upgrade path with upcoming motherboards and that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's probably where it lands at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's pretty much how I would have tackled that one. So, good job, Tim.
All right, this question comes from Muad. Hopefully I got that right. How come you resisted the easy money offered by SCD Keys for advertising stolen OEM Windows keys? Do you have any advice for the affected YouTubers that think money is better than reputation?
Ooh, I don't know if I'll touch on that last bit, but we just avoided them because, maybe some of what you said in that comment, probably not the most reputable advertiser that we could choose. So, but honestly, I've never really looked into them that closely, just because when they contacted us, they didn't want to do in-stream ads. Rather, they wanted a dedicated sponsor video. And for us, that's really a big no-no. So, not the type of video we want to do or the type of content we want to make. And that's more, in our opinion, sort of, what would you say, this sort of sellout type content. Yeah. So, not sort of stuff we want to do. But does that desk need a bit of a...
Yeah, I think it does, actually.
Yeah, that's a really good vacuum.
Yeah. This question's from Abraham. What do you expect from Computex 2018?
Good question. Well, I think what's guaranteed is a complete lack of sleep. Hopefully, a fair bit of fun. I suppose you're asking, though, product-wise, what we expect to see. And that's a tough one. Tim and I we discussed that on the Patreon live stream. We're having a good think about that. I'm definitely expecting some new motherboards. So your Z390 chipset from Intel, and then the Z490 from AMD, which... Seriously, AMD, I can't believe the Z490 is actually a thing. I was pretty shocked by that. So stupid. Yeah. And then other than that, maybe some second-gen Threadripper.
Yeah, I think there might be a chance of new stuff from Nvidia, but it's really hard to tell at this point. Even though we're only a couple of weeks out, it's really going to be when we're there that we start to see what sort of things are coming out.
Yeah, so fingers crossed for new GPUs, but who knows?
All right. Next question's from Peter. Pairing an Nvidia GPU with a FreeSync monitor, what will you see? 144 FPS but stuttering, or just 60 FPS? So the only real thing that FreeSync provides is adaptive sync support. So when you're running on an AMD card, you get adaptive sync. When you're running on an Nvidia card, you don't get adaptive sync. So aside from that, every other feature should work perfectly fine. So in the case of a 144Hz monitor with FreeSync on an Nvidia GPU, you'll definitely be able to run all the way up to 144Hz, maximum refresh, no problems. But of course, you won't get adaptive sync, so depending on whether you use VSync on or off, you'll either get stuttering or screen tearing below 144 FPS. And then, of course, above it, the same sort of problems as AMD has. So, FreeSync monitors work perfectly fine with NVIDIA GPUs, but you're just missing out on that variable refresh rate technology.
Yep. Glad you answered that, because I only clicked halfway through to what he was actually asking, but... Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Next question is from King. What systems do you guys use for video editing and gaming? Apologies if this has been answered before somewhere. I don't know if it has, but that's fine. You can ask. Well, I use the Threadripper 1950X now. I've been actually using that for quite a few months. I still have not built my 1950X system. It's still sitting on a bit of foam in my office. So, that's a bit embarrassing, but I'll do that at some point. Probably by the time second-gen Threadripper comes around. But that's my editing / workstation, so that's where I spend most of my time. Then I have a separate gaming system. It's not actually the one that's in here, but this is another Threadripper Core i7-8700K system, but I have another set upstairs that I use for gaming.
Nice.
And that's just got, again, a GeForce GTX 1080 Ti. Can't really beat that combo for gaming, so I'm quite happy with it.
Yep. Unlike Steve, I have just one system that I use for both my editing and gaming. No real need to have two just at the moment. So I've still on my Ryzen 7 1700X in there.
Yep.
Planning to upgrade that to 2700X on the same board because nice compatibility stuff there. And then I have Titan X Pascal for gaming. So basically the same as a 1080 Ti. And yeah, that's been really good so far.
Yeah, not too bad on the G. Well, both your CPU and GPU are very respectable, but obviously the GPU is hard to beat.
Yeah, it's great for. I've got an ultra wide, so 3440 by 1440, and yeah, it runs really well.
Yep, I think perfect all rounder, really.
Yep. Right, this question's from Daniel. Why does the GA990 FXA UD3 Ultra exist? It's an AM3 Plus motherboard, all right, with USB 3.1 Type-C and an M.2 slot. Is this tech wasted on this older platform?
Yeah, it's hard to say why that one exists. I guess it's because all of you are insane. But okay, maybe not you guys watching this video, but there's plenty of insane shoppers out there. Snapping up FX 8350 processors. Can you believe this? They are these CPUs consistently make their way into Amazon's top 20 best CPU sellers list. Yeah, Bulldozer CPU 2018, and they're in the top 20. So they're beating out like Skylake X CPUs and stuff. I mean, I suppose people are seeing, an 8-core CPU for, I think it was $98, basically $100 US last time I checked, and they're just going, add that to cart. Maybe because of the hype around Ryzen, they just think that's...
Yeah, maybe. That'd be unfortunate.
Yeah, well, yeah. I went and checked the rating as well, and they're getting 4.5 stars out of 5 star as the rating, and that's like 2,000 insane customers. So... yeah, I'd say that's why Gigabyte's decided to release that new 990FX motherboard, because people are still snapping up FX processors, if you can believe that. So, all right, next up we have Clint Excalibur 71. All right, with what are you laughing at? With second-gen Ryzen springing hot this season, would it be better to buy a first-gen Ryzen processor at a cheaper price, or second-gen in terms of price to performance? Okay, well, I think it's time Tim took on a question. So
okay, so Mr. Excalibur, I guess it depends on how much cheaper you can get the first gen Ryzen parts for. I guess right now, here in Australia, 1600 is just $30 cheaper than the 2600, and for that sort of price, you definitely wouldn't touch the first gen part. Over on Amazon, the 1600 is $15 US saving again, so I guess it wouldn't go near it for that sort of tiny saving. No. Yeah, the 2600 is 190 US, 1600 is 175 US, so yeah, would have to be around 150 US, I would sort of say, for the 1600 for it to be sort of worth it.
Yeah, I think 150 US is a great price for that CPU, or if you can get it lower. I think some of our US viewers are saying Micro Center, that's the big chain over there. They were doing like motherboard and CPU combos for insane, like 150 or something like that.
Jeez, that's pretty good.
That, if you see that, obviously get that. But I think 150 US or lower, that's a good buy.
Yep. All right, this question is from Mario. Ryzen 3 2200G or Ryzen 5 2400G, which is the best value for money?
I think you really have to, would you go with the 2200G?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Ryzen 3 2200G all day on that one. The 2400G, it's a good APU. Good. It's just a bit too expensive, really. That's the only bad thing about it. It comes down to pricing, doesn't it? Which is what you're asking. I think they're 170 US is the MSRP, and they're currently selling for about that 160 US, maybe 225 Aussie. So a bit pricey for a quad core with SMT. So it needs, again, another CPU. It probably needs to be about 150 US at most to make sense. And I think that's a very similar conclusion to what we came to in our day one coverage. And that video, though, was about half an hour long, though. So even I didn't watch all of it, so I'll let him off on that one.
All right, Steve, this next question comes from a user who's chosen the username of the Saucy Goblin Shark.
Love it.
How will DDR5 or near memory affect AMD's APUs in terms of performance?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, assuming the timings aren't slacker than AMD's chipset naming division, I'd say pretty massive. Seriously, though, put it this way, I'd say, or what's another way to look at it? Maybe if you were to say if Raven Ridge used DDR3 2400 memory, so that's probably a good way to go back a bit. If you put DDR3 memory with a Raven Ridge APU, it would be a lot slower than the DDR4 2933 memory. So that's probably a good way to look at it. So
And I'm your host, Tim.
We'll see you again next time.